Okay, let's do some yoga. I'm trying to get to work with my sidekick and she's not collaborating. She just wants to embarrass me. I did not do the kitchen well this morning, so she's taking revenge. I see that. Okay, we're gonna do a relaxed breathing meditation session, and we are going to start on the floor, which secretly you wanted, and she non-secretly said she wanted. So we will start with a lying down meditation as Savasana. You will need today a mat if you have space at home with a blanket, maybe a carpet even, or a thin mattress. Some yoga blocks, maybe we use some pillows, just the pajama practice, yeah, nothing fancy. So we will start lying down on the floor. And now, the not talking strategy is perfect. Do you want a blanket, honey? Yes? So, get the butler to bring you a blanket, a pillow, and like I need to do now, let's land. Yeah. My last half hour it's been like, shit, this doesn't work, shit, that doesn't work. Where's the camera? Why is not? YouTube is not working. So the first thing you wanna connect with the feeling of gravity in your body, with a sense of weight, with a sense of density maybe. It's related, built in somehow, a layer of the sense of balance and kinesthetics that we have. Ah, yeah, we have a road nearby. This is like real life yoga. What was I saying? Yes. There's a sense of how much we weight. If you are in a body of water, you are less heavy. You would feel that it's not just the sensation of the water in the skin, but you feel the gravitylessness of your body. In a regular environment, it's always constant. The force of gravity is constant, so we have kind of gotten used to it. But when you start a relaxation practice, like Jen is doing here, the sensation of weight on your shoulders, on your hips, on your head, those areas of the body that have bigger or a higher concentration of bones. So you follow somehow the structure of the body, and then this structure contains the rest, the flesh, the organs, the content. And that has an elastic, softer nature. So the feeling of gravity comes together when we are talking about soft tissues with a feeling of melting, folding, a psychological layer or feeling of surrendering, giving, maybe not giving up, more like giving in. In this first round, how thorough you need to be, how I know some of you are meditators, you practice regularly, and a regular meditator can get very detailed in going into really little places in the body and try to feel specific areas, especially if you have been injured or if you are a yoga practitioner as well and a meditator. The, the capacity of penetration in the body can also mean that you get a little lost in labyrinths. So for these first rounds, I would be a little general. Just pass attention through your body, head to feet, then go a little deeper to try to connect with the content, the flesh, the softness of the body, in both cases with the weight. This sense of surrender in the body can pull the mind, or can pull, let's say, your attention down as well. And we can start to get a little drowsy, a little sleepy. If you learn how to decouple, in a way, the sense that your body becomes very heavy, very relaxed, but instead of lethargic in the gaze, you kind of float up. So you can feel very alert while very relaxed. It's a strange feeling to describe. If this is not possible, maybe open your eyes, maybe work with the breath a little, bigger breaths, stronger breaths, so you feel a bit more engaged, forcing yourself to stay awake. Which brings us to the next chapter. Go through the structure, go through the content. We find now the battery, the energy source of this body. The kalpasas. So, inside, what is animating this structure for me to call it a living entity? So there's a number of things, and I guess you can look for origins, depending where you look at it. Could be consciousness, could be your heart, could be your parents. But in terms of daily experience, the source of energy, the animation of the body starts from the breathing, the movement of the lungs, and for us as yogis, more interest in the movement of the diaphragm. So we land on the movement of the diaphragm. And we start to pay attention to the breath. When we pay attention to the breath, sometimes we tend to think of it as an abstract, even though it's quite a physical action. And if you think of it or if you approach it as an abstract, you're going to need to quantify your breath. Therefore, people learn how to count the breath or how to count the seconds, the duration on the breath, or we overimpose exercises because we feel it's so ethereal that if I somehow control it in a particular way, then I can see that, not the breath itself, but my control strategy. Instead of doing that, I would say let's not define it by an arbitrary decision, but instead, let's pay attention to the qualities of the breath that we can touch. For instance, the rhythm. Don't change it, don't alter it, don't slow it down unless what we said before you're falling asleep. But the rhythm of the breath, individually, as it feels slow, fast, but also in connection to the breaths that were before and the breaths that are coming after. Do you feel a stable rhythm? Or, like, let's say, the tick-tack of the clock, stable, always the same rhythm? Or do you feel that the breath itself is breathing with shorter breaths and longer breaths, and somehow each breath expressing a certain personality, if you want? Another thing we can observe in the breathing is Which areas of the body are moving when I breathe? Once again, without necessarily changing it. Your lungs, your solar plexus, your belly. If you're attentive, on a laying down position, everything is stopped by the floor. You can almost feel like the whole body breathes. In reality, if you are looking for movement due to the breath in your body, you will be able to find it anywhere. Maybe very subtle and very feeble, but everything is oscillating with the breath. It's such a central movement. Another thing we can look in the breathing, I guess, is more like that would be more abstract. What is the feeling of this breath today? Not to judge, not to define, but it's nice to be aware. If this is a representation of the breath that you carry with you on a day-to-day basis, how does it feel? Satisfying? Does it feel nurturing? Does it feel full and generous? Or like I have been having in the last couple of hours, it feels a little short, a little tight here, a little stressful. So whichever are these attributes of the breath, the first response that we are going to apply to it is not to modify them, but somehow to like if you see a surface and there are obstacles, yeah, and then you're like, you can choose to clean them up or kind of think of my cat. Like she looks for sometimes very comfortable places and sometimes very edgy, strange places and she folds, yeah? So I think with the breath we do like the cat. We fold on its edges rather than clean them out real quick. We fold around them. We allow it to be short. If it is short, it's okay. With this, well, you've been going through the body in its structure and in its warmth. You've fallen on the breath. You felt its movement, its rhythm, its color. Those of you with more experience, now it's a nice practice to start seeing all these different approaches to meditation. Subtle, from the perspective of the camera, so it's doing the same, yeah? As long as we are lucky and she doesn't fall asleep, nothing shows. But the internal strategy is can become very steady or can be kind of continuously shifting. So what I propose you now is sort of a way into the practice. And now rather than adding another layer, another technique, what I would like to do is put them all together. So you're observing or being conscious of your structure and the shape and the form that your body occupies in space. You are aware of the warmth and the softness and the surrendering capacity of the content of the body. And you are aware of a breath that animates, moves, massages, contorts, soothes, and heals the body. So maybe as we do 3 or 4 or 5 different positions, you can be aware of all these at the same time. Plus one last element, kind of like the thread where we're going to wrap all these around. This breath that we are observing. Now, from now on, rather than leaving it completely as it is, we are going to alter it, modify it, control it. I don't like any of those words. We are going to help it. Yeah, it's better. So we're going to take this breath and without imposing a will on it, we're going to add one or two modifications, very subtle but very effective. The first one, from now on, I'd like if you can create a little space between the end of an exhale and the beginning of the next inhale. So it comes inhale, exhale, inhale, exhale. So inhale, exhale. In the valley between exhale and inhale, we're going to create a little space. I'm not asking for you to hold the breath, but just the feeling that you rest your diaphragm. This creates a little bit of space between breaths. This gives the breath a feeling of not being rushed, not being pulled, not being pushed, and also to a certain degree, because it can die all the way, and the next one is not coming as if a domino piece was just pushing the next one. It has a little bit of time to generate itself. It also gives a certain personality to each breath. One thing we do is we tend to think of breaths as linked in a chain, as indivisible, like they are just workers in a factory line, yeah? I think it is nice to have a sense of the rhythm of the breath as a team, but each breath is different. Each breath is unique in its own way. And the other modification that we're going to give to the breathing is just slow it down a little. Nothing major, just a little bit. There's different ways to slow the inhale and the exhale. The exhale, if you think of the way an apple falls from a tree, and then you think of the way a leaf falls from that tree. So that's what we're looking for. In the way the diaphragm relaxes rather than all in one go, see if we can sustain, contain, accompany this release. On the inhale is different. On the inhale, you know these bouncy balls that we sit, yeah? So imagine that you would push with the hand into one of these balls, like a Pilates ball. That is a little loose. So it feels very easy, yeah? And at certain point, you're pushing the air and the volume is decreasing, so the resistance is increasing. And at certain point, it's heavier. If you apply no effort, then you would just bounce back your hand. But the fact that it's a little heavier doesn't mean that it's impossible. You can push your hand against the resistance of the Pilates ball and push it in a bit further. Yeah, does that make any sense? The diaphragm has the same journey on an inhale. It pushes down and it feels like it encounters almost no resistance. 2, 3, 4 seconds. At certain point, it's pushing against the contents of your abdomen. Intestines, stomach, liver, kidneys, etc. And that cavity is closed. It's not open like the chest cavity, only when we go to the toilet. So the ceiling of the cavity, the ceiling of the cylinder is moving down. At certain point starts to encounter resistance. Now you can still push. I'm not asking you to push too much, too long, too big, a little longer. Yeah? So a space between breaths and then both inhale and exhale a little longer. That's enough. And also see that this is not set. Every breath a little different is fine. A little shorter, a little bigger, you need a break, a few breaths all the same. You're creating continuous strategies to adapt to the moment. So there you have the rhythm of the moment, this eternal now that is constantly changing, and your breath kind of following its intuition of how to adapt to this eternally changing now. Now you remove the adaptation and you end up with natural breath and how it adapts by itself, which is also a fair exercise, more like what we would call pure meditation. Since we're going to work with a few positions, we're going to stretch, we're going to ask from our body to do a little something, we will work with gently modified breath. Good. So we'll move to one of these simple positions, and as simple as to bend your knees and put the soles of the feet on the floor. There. Maybe also put your hands on your lower abdomen. One thing I try to create in a life, this is life, but in a live and on-site yoga practice, with myself alone when I practice, and also when I have students, is to space things out, to create, like between breath and breath, also between position and position, a little pause, a little breath. Yeah, it is different if you are doing a dynamic vinyasa sequence or a flow practice. Then the whole practice kind of the continuity from one to the other one, the dance of asana, the dance of movement. You're thinking more in the creation of a flow, or the maybe not creation. It's almost like you are trying to find it in a way. With a static practice like this one, the idea is a little different because all you are doing is looking to observe the internal movement. So the external stillness is for a reason. If everything is still on an external level, if there is no physical action going on, then your ability to look in is increased. You have a glass of water with something floating on the water. If you keep shaking the glass, it's really difficult. What it is that it is floating, you steal the glass, the water stops, and then you can see the floating ant of the breadcrumb. Yeah. So with the body, with the still restorative yin practice, we do the same. Now in this stealing, if you're very new, or if you are doing yoga because you feel like you need to answer some sort of duty, somehow you have decided that is the right thing to do, then in this stillness, in this pause, there's going to be a lot of noise. If you have experience and if you practice because you enjoy the practice and because it's a pleasure in your life, then you also are going to have a lot of noise. But in this second case, probably your attitude towards the noise is a little different. It's part of it. It's nothing that you're trying to get rid of or transcend. It's part of who you are. Not entirely, certainly not. Maybe not even the most important part. But we don't come to the mat to get rid of it. It's there. But because you enjoy it, because the practice is a pleasure for you, yeah, simultaneously as you are thinking about whichever image you need to send after this practice, there is a good chance that you're also feeling your breath in your hands, feeling the warmth of the hands, feeling the weight of your shoulders, feeling your intestines relaxing, falling heavy to the spine. Very simple position from here. With the feet hip width apart or even further apart, maybe as wide as the mat is wide, we're going to let both knees fall to the right. Let's see if we can see this in our model here. There. So your left knee will be kind of over the right foot, more or less. Clack. Okay, what can we say of this? Let's see. Let's see how long the cable is. Oh no. Ah, my foot is slipping. Let's go and bother Jenny a little bit. Stretch, 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 stretch. There. So, what I like about this position is this line here that goes from the outside of the knee through the outside of the thigh, outside of the hip bone, and almost all the way to her armpit. It's been stretched. Not too much, not very heavy, but it's being stretched. The other line on the inside, from the inside of the knee through the inside of the thigh, through the inside of the groin, kind of going through, connecting with the diaphragm, that one is becoming a little shorter. So you have one stretchy line, so to speak, and one slack line. I like the contrast. It's very common for us yogis to only think of the stretch, but think that any time a part of your body is being stretched, another part is shrinking or being compressed. Now the breath goes through this internal line. Oh, nice. All this was an inhale, very beautiful. And now I don't know if you can see my hand falling. All this is an exhale. I think this student has practiced yoga before. Ah, look at this. Jen is a dancer, yeah? So she's so conscious of movement. When you're controlling your breath, long inhales, long exhales, remember we're discussing the rhythm, and I was talking again of the rhythm in relationship with breath between breath, yeah? But look at this. When Jenny takes a slow, no, you're practicing, don't look, listen. When Jenny takes a long inhalation, I feel my hand moving up, but it's not starting and stopping. It's moving almost continuously at the same rhythm, which means that she's controlling the movement of her diaphragm. Oh, with such smoothness, such smoothness. So if you think, I don't know, a practice of Tai Chi when they move very slowly and very beautiful, and you can see almost that is the energy that is moving the body rather than the body moving itself. That's a little bit the way you want to feel about your diaphragm, as if your diaphragm was doing Tai Chi inside your body. And then we go to the other side. An interesting dilemma of online teaching is what to do with yourself when you want to give the people a little quiet. In person is a little easier. I'm practicing with you. I do the position, I shut up for a bit, I breathe for a bit. Here I'm just sitting looking at you. But I think it's important in a way, even if it's online, that there is a little time where you are on your own in a way, which is completely counterintuitive, yeah? But think like this. You practice online, or you practice in a studio, you practice with a teacher, and I do it too. And there are two things we want to learn, but we want to also have this help that somebody um, guides you so your attention hooks to a narrative, and then it's a little easier to not fall into your washing machine of thought and memory and projection. When you are on your own, when you practice alone, when there is silence, this is unavoidable. So that's why many of us feel like, yeah, we need a bit of guidance, we need a YouTube video, we need something to hook our attention so we actually do the practice. Now, being here, I'm part of that problem. But I always, even when I do it live or in person, my um, intention is to help you feel the more I can how it would be if you practice on your own. That's why the instructions are more like tricks and tips and little details about the practice that I've learned over the years. Jenny, can you place your hand a little lower? Even a little lower. There. The inside of the hip bone is very far from the diaphragm, so you really need to push quite a long inhale. You would probably, if anybody wants to go to Lagos, you are on time to catch the bus here. If you keep pushing with the breath, eventually at the end of the inhale, you're going to feel this is an effortful breath, calm, but there is push all the way to the end. But you will feel the very end of the torso as it connects with the hips expanding a bit. And it's almost as if you're breathing in that little corner inside your groin. The line that connects lower back to thighs is a conflictive one, both through the outside of the hips, through the inside of the hips, through the genitals. That section of the body is one certainly to love. We bring Jenny back and yourself as well. And after a little time, she is going to pick up her knees and bring them towards her chest. And this breathing time between positions, what Jenny was doing now, it can be important. at least after 40 or after 50 or after 60, depending you are going to put the number. But there is a certain feeling, maybe young people don't relate to it so well, when you have been in a position for a long time and you move back. Um, Yin practice overall, I find it beneficial for this feeling. Overall, at the end of the practice, I feel more open, less stuck. But from position to position, sometimes we do feel it. So that little space between us and us to move a bit, to not have to rush, very useful for us all this, or semi all this, or apprentice of all this, or proper all this. Then the knees go to the chest, and there's no need to pull. If Jenny wanted, she could pull her legs all the way to the chest, very tight. But what she's doing instead, I think is what I suggest to do, is kind of resting the legs in the frame that she has created with the arms. So they're heavy on the floor, relaxed. Part of her mind is in the very mild stretch of her lower back, but as well the weight of the legs themselves, the way they rest on the arms and the way they rest on the hips, that is creating a base with the two sacroiliac joints for the sacrum. And she might be feeling, I know her a bit, so she might be feeling one side a little heavier, or one side a little tighter. Or maybe one of her legs is resting a bit more heavy against one of the arms. A slight deviation in the pelvic alignment. There are different strategies that complement each other. On this practice, the strategy that we use towards these asymmetries and these misalignments is to not call them so. We observe as a part of me that has become that way over the years, and the observation is curious, is integrational. You want to integrate the information. It doesn't need to be verbal, linguistic information. That I don't mean you're going to have sentences explaining what you're feeling. A sensory one, where you feel the area. There's more space there. That's tighter. This is higher. That kind of feeling. Something that Jenny likes to say. Sometimes it comes my way as her partner. No need to reach for conclusions. We are observing the process. No need for conclusions. And then from here, we are going to place you guys on a twist. Guys and girls, on a twist. So the legs for one side.
Alignment. No, crossing.
Either or. So you have, show me, Jenny, the easier position with the legs together. Yeah? So now this is very well placed, knees together, one on top of the other one, very perfect alignment. Can you bring your knees a bit further away and soften the position slightly? This is a little loose, yeah. If you're not pushing, that's okay. The knees have slided a bit from each other. Her left shoulder is a little closer to the floor. Can you give me a variation where your whole shoulder is on the floor? And maybe a block under your legs? Yeah. So as you see, even if I was describing now with Jenny, no, she's have I think it's the other one, but she has a an achy shoulder for a few weeks. Maybe you have an achy hip. This position twists your spine, but then it allows you to equalize. Do you want more strength towards the shoulder? Strength in terms of depth of the stretch, or in the hip? Do you want both conservative? Then keep the shoulder on the floor and put even pillows under the legs. So the whole thing is very mild. You want to feel more, you want to cross your leg and go into a deep stretch. Just check the limits of your breath. If the breath is pretty much like it was before, the sensation increases, and you get more sensory feedback. The breath accommodates this intensity or this increase of intensity in the sensation comfortably, then it's fine. If the sensation increases so much that you start to feel there is an aggressive action and therefore your breath recoils and shortens and fights, then it's too much. So I would say, in terms of the depth of the position, you have the alignment pointers, the anatomical alignment pointers, but even before those, you have the quality of the breath, the reception that the breath is doing over the position. And that is your barometer. So they go deeper, so they take it easier. And also see that there's a range. Preference might bring you to a higher, stronger level of sensation, or to a softer one, depends on your mood that day. Some of you asked, we had these fires last week. Nobody died. It was close to a couple of villages that could have been really disastrous. We have next door some people who are fire refugees. There are some neighbors are accommodating them in a guest house. I've had some talks. It's wonderful, the human spirit. Like people losing everything, and 3 days after, you keep going. You know, heavy-hearted maybe, but everybody is. Let's stand up, and the community is helping so much here in the south of Portugal. We are a big portion moved away, Portuguese and foreigners. So I don't know, we learn how to be there for each other, I guess, because we don't have our mommy and our daddy and our sis. It's nice. It's nice. Disaster and sadness, but it's nice to see people coming together. Okay, the other side. So we go back to the middle, and when we get to the middle, we are going once again to take a little break, a little pause. See the difference from side to side. Let the hips align, let the shoulders align. See now the spine without a twist. Should feel a little different one side to the other one. In which way does it feel different? And in which way does the rest of the body assimilate the information? And then whenever you're ready, we do the other side. I shall give you the silence you seek, and I will refill my water. In terms of the breathing, now we are last part of the practice. Even if you were going to go on for longer and you have another hour or two, now that first bridge, whatever you were doing before, get used to staying in your body rather than flying about. Let the breath settle in it, your mind as well. Start working with it. Eventually, it starts to open up. You start to feeling the joy of stretching, even if it's very mild today. At this point, on an average day, you start to feel like, yeah, now I can breathe longer. Now I can mold the breath a little bit easier to my will. 20 minutes or half an hour ago, maybe it felt like its breath, it was a bit of an effort to shift. Usually, at least for me, it's like that in the beginning. Now, if you're getting to that honeymoon of the breath, express it. If it feels joyful to be really long and big, powerful inhales, don't rush it. Not the inhale itself, but don't even rush the next exhale. Don't rush it from the previous breath. Like a big movement and a big release. So if you were flapping your breath wings on this rhythm, now you start going on very big. Think of a pelican, huge wings. We come back to the middle. We bring the legs back to the chest again. We place the soles of the feet on the floor, the soles of the feet towards each other, and we let the knees fall to the sides. We released the outer line of the hip with a very mild, gentle position. We open the shoulders, pull a little bit from the lateral, the sides of the lower back, a little bit on the buttocks with our twist. The spiraling of the spine and the pattern of pressure and release that it creates in the torso together with the breathing forces you to soften your inside. So this very minimalistic practice, there's a lot of things that we haven't covered, but that general area from shoulders to hips, where many of the day-to-day issues, yeah, from having a cold to being nervous to having an indigestion, pain in the back, a shoulder is achy, you're short of breath. Much of the human condition beyond accidents is from neck to hips. Together with the breath and 3-4 positions, you have the ability to go in all the areas of your torso, from the left shoulder to the right hip, from the right shoulder to the left hip. And now we have finally this tender, sensitive area, the groin, the pubic region, the genitals, the inner thighs, the very lower abdomen. And because I asked you previously to make a little bit of an extra effort with your breathing, and because we've been practicing almost for an hour, now, Jenny, can you put your hands on your lower belly? There. That area, or even lower, we are to have the luxury. I'm gonna zoom into Jenny's hands. I don't know if you can see it very clearly now. She's finishing an inhale. And you probably shouldn't even look at this yet. You should be breathing. And now we are falling into an exhale. She's having a really nice long breathing pattern. But even if it was shorter, think the feeling, the space between the breaths, the sense of, yeah, luxury in the way you treat your own time. I was going to say your own free time, but it doesn't matter. Any time, even if you're on the clock. Honor the fact that in that moment you're choosing. So when there's a little pause, then there is a proper pause. Finish the next exhale. Careful. For some people, this is really individual. For some people, this is almost pleasant. And for some people, this is really challenging. So careful, put your hands under your legs and bring them up slowly. Once again, hold them in the arms and maybe bring them towards the chest. No need to go tight. Ooh, I haven't talked about one of my favorite things. You, every time you work with the hips, every time you work with your sacral region, your lower spine, your groin, think the spine begins there, continues all the way until it penetrates into the brain through the skull. Yeah, that last section is like you're holding the two ends, and in the middle it kind of snakes through, but the top end, the connection between neck and skull, the entrance of the spine into the head cavity, the jaws, the sides of the neck, the vertebrae themselves, the collarbones, all that section It's a feeling of falling. Sometimes when I'm giving shiatsu therapy and I see somebody whose neck is very arched, yeah? Sometimes I will pull from the head or massage, or sometimes it's very thick tension and you have to work manually. But sometimes you realize that it's almost like a habit. Everything comes from a habit. But part of it does not need to be worked in a long time. Part of it is just to realize that we are doing it. So as we refine the awareness of our relaxation, that area, what I do in practice, in shiatsu practice sometimes, I can just put a hand under the neck and let them know that I'm waiting to catch the fall of the neck. So when you are alone, a way to do this is to almost imagine that you can feel the air, the space between your neck and the floor. And almost as if it was a prediction, it's calling for your neck to fall there. Details at the depth of certain release in a meditation practice are very personal. I explain you little images or little strategies that I have developed, and they're always changing. But if you have another way to look at it or another approach to it to reach the same conclusion, then use yours. Then we extend the legs and we end up in Savasana. Blanky, you have a question? Here in the Algarve, I guess if you live in a bigger city, but we live in small villages, and now it's been a while that we don't see too many children around. It's just a group of kids passing by. It's nice to see things coming back to normal slowly. I feel tempted to tell you stuff, but let's see what can I say about what we are doing. Let's leave it open. Let's do that. Let's have a practice where there is no exercise. So, body is resting. Yeah, that's already something set. And hopefully you're not falling asleep. That's enough. You've been working now for an hour, observing the different patterns of your body and connecting them with the breath. So that has created a habit, a late habit, a momentary habit, a current habit of this last hour, but still, inertia is inertia. Even if it's small in comparison with the rest of your life, it still has a momentum. So, what can happen if we just lie down peacefully, body still, not awake? Imagine that that is the extent of our instructions. Not awake, no. Not sleeping, awake. The first thing that will happen, we'll first move to sounds or images. In your place, you have this image, but it's not changing much. But sound, yeah? We bring some of it. Maybe you have your own, the neighbor is going to the toilet, the phone maybe beeps, you forgot to put it in silence. Let's say you are in silence, nothing moving, nothing sounding. Where will the movements of mind take you? Basically, to two places. To a mind made world that you can think about, and to a mind made world that you can feel. Both, they have a certain relationship with something out there. We know that. But at the end of it, your experience is always internal. That's why I said mind made twice. So, first thing I would look at, what is your degree of freedom when it comes to your attention? Now that you're still and you can observe yourself, it goes here, it goes there. Now, can you say, okay, now I want to look at that? Can you make that decision? If you want it to. How long does your decision, how long is valid for? Even before this decision, when you're moving your mind, when you're seeing your mind move, is it today rapid? Is it sluggish? Does it have a preference? Does it like to go to the past? Does it prefer to go to the future? Does it like problems? Does it like to imagine better things? How often does attention shift from thought to body? Does that happen? You have been practicing yoga and meditation for a number of years. Does that happen? Are you creating a habit of attention by itself, by its own desire, moving towards the body? When it's in the body, where does it go? Always the same places, different ones. How long does it like to stay in a place? So as you see, there is always an endless supply of practices that will tell you to do something. And we use a number of them, very useful. But there is also the choice of having a practice, a moment of reflection, where after your body is calm, you just observe simply the way you operate, not trying to improve, not trying to erase mistakes, but just trying to befriend it. Will this offer any beneficial results? I don't know. That's the truth. But how do you feel now? And I'm not saying I don't know because I don't think so, but because I don't know. But at this moment, the experience that you're having, the level of intimacy you're having with yourself, the sense of at homeness in your own skin, the feeling in your breath, the relationship in terms of gratitude to the life that you have been given at this moment. How do you feel? So sure, a yoga or meditation practice has a beneficial effect in your health, in your well-being, and maybe in the long run in your life. And it might even lead to enlightenment if that exists. But from this vantage point, from this place that is all too far, how do you feel at this moment? That should be your reward when it comes to yoga practice. Should. Horrible. That can be. That is my suggestion of the day. Good. So we had our first YouTube online live practice. I'm gonna leave you where you are so you finish your Savasana, and if you have the time, maybe you wanna do some more active, some more movement practice. And if you're not, maybe just continue with your Savasana for a little longer. Monday to Friday at 3 Portuguese. We'll be here. Today was 10 past, but yeah, hopefully 3 o'clock. Thank you for being there. I'll see you tomorrow.